Peace and love to you all. I wasn't planning on speaking today. To be honest, I promised my children I'd have 2 weeks after the election where I do nothing. And I think that with the gravity of everything that's happening, it's imperative that we all stand up now, that none of us take time off. I think it's more important than before the election that we all stand up and say something and be counted and call them out. Let's call each and everything out. Let's not forget that what we did in 6 weeks has never been done before. It's never been done. The status quo has never been challenged like we challenged them. Each one of you who are here today, we challenged the status quo. We tried to do something, and we have started something, and it's called the movement. And it's not something that I've ever done before, or I'm sure that you've ever done before, but it's something that's upon us, and we must continue it. And until we realize at each and every person's part, everybody's part, we're not going to get anywhere. And we've seen in the election results that without us all uniting, this is what happens. 153 candidates, I think, is that right, Hans? 153. 153 candidates stood up, most of them, like me, with no ambition to be, a political figure. Most of them without any experience of politics. Yet we knew in our hearts that it was the right thing to do because corruption is rife, because justice is not being served, because injustice in the places where decisions are made, justice is important. It's the most important thing. Integrity is the most important thing. So we must fight for it. And we didn't get into this thinking, oh, we're all going to win. We knew right at the beginning that most of us probably won't win, because 6 weeks to pull off the heist of a lifetime is not just a tall order. It's impossible. But we did the impossible by gaining each vote that we did within those 6 weeks. So we must continue this trajectory. We must continue the fight. And quite rightly on the poster for today, it said the struggle continues. Damn right it continues. We have to continue it, because without this struggle now, if we don't continue this struggle now, there's nothing for our children to look forward to. There is no hope. Because as we've seen with Keir Starmer's promise of 3 billion, he's promised 3 billion a year to the Ukrainians, instead of promising to take the 30% of children in this country who are living under the poverty line out of austerity. That for me is super alarming. If we continue to stay silent, if we continue to stay disunited, then we're not going to make it anywhere. So we've got to stand up and be counted. Anything worth fighting for has never come easy. And I think we're ready for it. I think the fact that we're all here shows that we're ready for it, and we must continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much for your time. I think I've seen you also all over social media campaigning. Big congratulations. You went for the real fight. Let's give a big round of applause. I'm not getting on the spot here. I think it's very important to get Miman, who was selected as our local councillor here in Deeplish. Just to say a few words. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Hello, assalamu alaikum. I don't know why I'm to change again. But all I'm going to say is, everything's been said that I wanted to say already. The amount of people in this room, I didn't think we had this much for the launch party. I think it is very alarming. People are very worried of what has happened. And we need to go back to where we started and hopefully get a fresh start, get George back in and do it all over again. Not just for us, like Roma said, for our children to come, for the future generations. If we don't start now, it's never going to start, and this is going to be the beginning of the end. We don't want that to be the case. So the mandate is with us. We've got 2 elected councillors in Rochdale. We need to build from their foundations. And I think that's everything I've got to say. The rest is
Thank you. If you don't know the English councillor, workers' party councillor, who won by major landslides, give him a big round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Right, guys, the moment we've all been waiting for, the moment I've been waiting for, I did not expect this to happen. I did not expect this to happen. What is happening? A man who's campaigned for over 50 years for our brothers and sisters in Palestine. A man who has campaigned for those who have been voiceless for many, many years. At the age of 70, he's doing more work than many of us were sitting on the fences. He comes, he travels during the campaign all over London, Birmingham. Handling 153 candidates is not easy. I can handle a group of 50 young people. He's handling over 150 candidates across the UK. And he's the one and only, he's our voice. He's the voices of the voiceless. He's the voice for our young people. He's the voice for our community. It's the one and only, with a standing ovation, George Galloway.
People feel bad and opposed. The gap of what you want to do, I know people marching to the wall when they're shooting. And that's a question, it's a question. You think this is the answer. You don't believe in Palestine. You don't believe in Gaza. Palestine opposed. The gap of what you want to do, I know people marching to the wall when they're shooting. And it's a question, it's a question. You think this is the answer. You don't believe in Palestine. You don't believe in Gaza.
All you see is war every time you turn your head. Don't step on the floor, all the cries and cries for his life. Look between these walls, see the lines between the lines behind the bullet coming from the tyrant stressing on this sky. I'm just going to pass it on to George now. Guys, thank you very much. Let's give him another standing ovation. George Galloway!
Wow, what a crowd. Some old faces, a lot of new faces, but what a crowd, mashallah. You know, I get to speak to a lot of you most of the time, and there's some messages which you've asked from me to share on, some things you want me to relay on, so I'm going to take 2 minutes of your time just before we hear from the man we're here to listen to. Firstly, they thought that we were going to give up. They thought we were going to lose, we were going to give up, and we were going to go home. This was never going to happen. We can't give up. We won't give up. Not whilst the blood of innocent children flows in the streets of Palestine. Yeah. Not whilst the cheeks and the beards are soaked in tears of our brothers and sisters in Palestine. We won't give up. We'll come back stronger. We'll agitate. We'll lobby. We'll do everything within our legal power to call these people out. I'm going to take a quick second just to make a plea. This plea is to our mosques. It's to the council of the mosques. It's to the community centres. It's to our shops. And it's to ourselves too. We have these big lists up in our mosques with lists of the fallen. We've got the ban on Coke, we've got the ban on McDonald's, we've got the ban on Starbucks. Why are we not banning the people that are within our community that propagate and support genocide? Why are we not banning them? My plea is very simple to these people, to these organisations. Please, please start calling them out. Start pointing the fingers at who they are. Take them out of our community. If not, let's stop the pretense Let's take down the lists. Let's all start drinking Starbucks again. Let's have Coke. Let the kids enjoy the Happy Meals. And let's pretend Palestine is special effects art from a Hollywood movie. We're not going to accept that. Please listen to the will of the people. Take on board what we said and take action on this. The second message I've got is that for our councillors. How dare you? How dare you jump up and down in your cheap suits? How dare you sing and chant in your broken English when you have our vote and you live with our money? How dare you jump up and down and support the genocide?
Well, sir.
Jim. My message is very clear to you, councillors, and this is specifically for our Muslim councillors. Do the right thing. Save the tsunami of protests that are heading your way. Resign. Resign and become independent because we don't want you. Save your political career. Do the right thing. And if you're not going to resign, I challenge you. If you think you have the mandate, you're mistaken. We have the mandate. The public, you have the mandate. We proved it on 29th of February. We proved it on the 3rd of May. And we again proved it on the 29th. It's us who hold the mandate, not you. If you think you have the mandate, if you think, councillors, you have the mandate, you're mistaken. I challenge you, resign, call a by-election, and I promise you we'll wipe the floor with you. And if for some miraculous reason we don't wipe the floor with you, then I promise you this, I'll return back to this hall in front of these good people and I'll apologise and leave Rochdale for good. Take the challenge if you're brave enough. Now I'm going to introduce John to speak and talk about what's in store for us for the future, but my vocabulary isn't broad enough to give you a justifiable introduction to George. All I can say is this is a man I've spent the last 6 months with quite closely. It's a man whose eyes I've seen wet with tears and his voice tremble when he talks about Palestine in private. Nobody else has seen him. You know, I hear often this is the greatest orator of our time. I'll be honest, I've worked closely with him. It's an injustice. This is the greatest living man for the causes that we care about of our time. History has proven again and again that he's been on the right side of it, and it will continue so. Also, our children and their children will remember this man. He's a living legend. Josh, let me hand the microphone to you.
Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Distinguished elders, scholars, councillors, brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd like to thank, first of all, Lockdown Security for doing a better job for me as I look at the surrounding roofs than the Keystone Cops of the American Secret Service did for Donald Trump. I feel totally in good hands with Lockdown Security. Let me thank you, MTS, for your beautiful words, your beautiful friendship over the last 6 months that you described, and I pray to God that we remain friends for always and ever, and our children after us. I'd like to thank Hafiz Malik Sahib for his granting of this wonderful venue in which we've had such memorable times. And I'd like to thank each and every one of you, including the large number of people standing outside the door at this mammoth rally, which launches the fight back in Rochdale. Someone asked me in the car park of the mosque, what's going on? I said, we're going on. I'm going on. That is what's happening here tonight. We will never We will never return to our homes. Neither the women nor the men will ever return to our homes whilst the tears and the blood in Palestine continues to flow. And I'll speak more about that in just a minute. But let me get some important housekeeping out of the way. We have submitted a file to Greater Manchester Police alleging electoral fraud on multiple levels with numerous counts, and we have petitioned the election court, and we demand a rerun of the election contest here in Rochdale. I cannot go into detail as to the minutiae of the case, but two of the most important, globally important in the first case, causes for the petition are the activities of a Zionist organization called Hope Not Hate, which should really be Hate Not Hope. Hate Not Hope is funded to the tune of £1 million a year and more by number one, the British government, the last British government, and this British government, and namely by the most significant blue chip donors to every Zionist front organization in this country, household names of the Israel lobby in Britain, intervened in our election unlawfully and at vast expense. And that alone warrants the complaint to the election court, but there is much more. Particularly, you talked, Imtiaz, about the councillors. Let me put Alta, is that his name? Ali. Dalit Ali. Your number is up. You will be forced to resign from Rochdale Council, and you will be in the dock of the election court when the case comes to the court. Dalit Ali, you are on notice that you have just cost the taxpayers of Rochdale a vast sum of money. And I am certain that they will be forced to require your resignation. So when I say what's going on, elections are going on. There'll be a by-election soon in the Kirkhope ward. We will be fighting it, and we will be winning it on behalf of the local party of Britain. And very soon thereafter, I'm certain that there will be a by-election in the Kingsway ward, and we will fight and win that one also. So our councillors, Farouk, Manam, will soon be joined by others, because we're not done yet with the criminal mismanagement of Rochdale's affairs by the so-called Labour Party. There's not just a vast audience in this auditorium. This is being live streamed. People are watching this all over the world who never heard a good word about Rochdale until our victory on the 29th of February, when our name resounded across the entire world, when people were cheering us in the West Bank, in Jerusalem, and even in Gaza. One of the brothers might be here this evening told me that he was recently in the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem itself, and when people asked him where he came from, he normally said Greater Manchester. This time he said Rochdale, and the people all cheered in the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. They cheered the name of Rochdale. We put Rochdale back on the map, and for a good reason, and for a good thing, and we will not allow Labour to return us to the dark days of their mismanagement. We will challenge them at every turn, every election, and every campaign that we hear them launch and announce. And I have several important announcements to make on that. But before leaving, I noticed that some people have taken their posters down from their window. Don't throw them away, because we will be back. There will be a by-election in Rochdale again, and we will win. And there was going on our campaign to reopen the maternity ward in Rochdale. The Tories promised it, Labour must deliver it. We demand it. Now they said the Tories couldn't promise it. Only the Manchester bureaucracy of the NHS could promise it. Okay? Well, you control the Manchester bureaucracy of the NHS. Andy Burnham is the leading figure in the Manchester bureaucracy of the NHS. Councillor Ali sits on the Manchester bureaucracy of the NHS. So now there's no excuse, is there? Reopen the maternity ward immediately. That is our basic demand here in Rochdale. Now, Paul, who says we can't have a maternity ward, we must have a birthing centre instead. They love these words in New Labour. They find it difficult to define even what a woman is. They think a man that identifies as a woman is a woman. They think breastfeeding should be renamed as chest feeding. They think the word mother should be dropped and replaced by people who give birth. Well, whether you call it a birthing centre or whether you call it a maternity ward, we demand it immediately and without delay. You're the government. You are the government. You control the NHS in Manchester. There's no hiding place now for you. You can't blame it on the Tories. Let me tell you, in parenthesis, when I went in, all guns blazing, to Maria Caulfield, the Tory Minister for Health, she held up her hands and said, let me tell you, before you go any further, it wasn't us that closed your maternity ward. It was Labour that closed your maternity ward. Labour in Manchester closed your maternity ward. Well, Labour, we demand that it open now. But Paul Who says it can't be a full maternity ward because we don't have an A&E. Well, who took away the A&E? Who can return the A&E? We demand both a maternity ward and an A&E in the Rochdale Infirmary, and we will never stop fighting for it. We'll never stop fighting. I see Rochdale Council put out on social media the other day, telling us as if we needed telling that diabetes is a particular problem in Rochdale. So is asthma. So is illness caused by damp houses, cold houses, inadequate houses. We've got 7 sisters just up the road, and we will continue to defend their virtue. Reopen the 7 sisters. Refurbish the 7 sisters. Who are homeless people are people on the waiting list in the 7 sisters. We see tower blocks in Manchester. Welcome to our dear brother Shabazz Sarwar from the Manchester City Council. We see what they've done with tower blocks. We demand the same. We're not second class here in Rochdale. We won't be treated as second class, neither by Andy Burnham nor by Keir Starmer. We demand Rochdale's fair share of the cake, and we will not accept our people thousands of them on waiting lists, more and more of them literally homeless, begging at the traffic lights. We were in the Hilton by Hampton or Hampton by Hilton. £80 a night. It's full of homeless people. £80 a night paid by the taxpayer to Hilton for homeless people when there's hundreds of flats empty in the Seven Sisters. We demand that our people are decently housed in warm and dry houses, that campaign will go on for as long as we here draw breath. We are here to stay for domestic reasons as well as for international. And Imtiaz touched so movingly on them in his opening remarks. Who knew that David Lammy, the new Foreign Secretary of Britain, who knew his first overseas trip would be to go and shake hands with the mass murderer Netanyahu in Tel Aviv this afternoon, proudly shaking the hand, the blood-stained hand of the people who have massacred. According to a letter in the Lancet last week, 186,000 Palestinians in Gaza in 10 months. That's 8% of the entire population of Gaza. It's no longer a genocide. It's a Holocaust. It's a Holocaust that's going on in Gaza. And Labour, having enabled it when they were in opposition, are now deeply complicit in it now that they are in government. It wasn't just Lammy that was shaking Netanyahu's hand. The Justice Secretary has confirmed that the Labour government in Britain will continue to block the International Criminal Court's arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant. Can you believe it? The ICC and its chief prosecutor, an Englishman, Mr. Khan, KC, want to issue an arrest warrant, and the Labour government of Britain is blocking it. Alone in the world, the Labour government in Britain is blocking it. Otherwise, Netanyahu couldn't travel anywhere, because any signatory to the ICC would be forced by law to arrest him on arrival. And so there is no arrest warrant. And it's Keir Starmer that is responsible for it. Imtiaz made some really important points. Boycott McDonald's. Boycott Starbucks. Boycott Coca-Cola. We're doing all these things. It's about time we boycotted Labour in its entirety. We have to make them make a dirty word in our community. A dirty word, a swear word. We shouldn't be allowing these people to swan around like they own the place because they've got a parliamentary majority. It's based on nothing. 19% of the British electorate voted for Keir Starmer. 19. More than 4 out of 5 people did not vote for Keir Starmer to be our Prime Minister. Their majority is based on the utterly obscene distortion of our electoral system. But they lost a lot of votes. Starmer, who described Jeremy Corbyn's result in 2019 as the worst election result in Labour's history. It wasn't, of course, but he knows nothing about Labour's history. He said it was the worst ever result, but he got 600,000 votes less than Corbyn got in 2019. He got 3 million votes less than Corbyn got in 2017. They lost more than half of Muslim voters. I've just seen the graph, a graph which calculates the Labour loss of vote in constituencies where more than 1% of the population, the electorate, were Muslim. They're down more than half. Hallelujah. But what were the other half thinking about? What were the other half doing, voting for Keir Starmer? Either they're stupid and they don't know what Starmer and Landy and Labour have done this last 10 months, or they don't care. They don't care enough about the dying, the mutilated, the maimed in Gaza, and Labour's role in it. Which way is it? Which of these two is it? Maybe they just didn't come out to vote at all. Half of the Muslims in Rochdale, half, did not vote. Only lost by 1,500. If 750 people that had voted Labour voted for me instead, I'd be the MP for Rochdale. So one of our first tasks, Cynthia, is to find out why the half of Rochdale's Muslims did not vote, and why some of them voted Labour. I saw Bengali voters voting Labour. A week after Keir Starmer threatened to deport them, they still voted Labour. I saw Kashmiri voters voting Labour. Even though Labour has completely 180 degrees switched its policy towards Modi and towards India's unjust occupation and exploitation of Kashmir. I saw Pakistani voters voting for Labour, even though Labour has supported the absolute abandonment of democracy and human rights in Pakistan. So we have some questions to ask ourselves. Why have we failed? Why did we fail with half of the Muslim voters? Why did we fail with way over half of the non-Muslim voters in Rochdale? Perhaps we didn't have enough time. Perhaps hope not hate poisoned the well. Don't think that we are oblivious to these questions and the need to answer them and to have a political strategy and program to answer them. We think that Labour will prove to be a disaster for our country. They may even lead us into World War III, in which case all of this talk will be odious. But even if they don't lead us into World War III, they are headed deeper and deeper into collaboration with Netanyahu and his crimes, and many other foreign adventures also. They will do nothing for the working class people of Rochdale. Otherwise, they'd be announcing the maternity ward right now. Why wouldn't you? If you were Paul Who, you'd be the one to deliver the maternity ward. Why have they gone quiet on it? Because they have no intention of improving the lives of the people in Rochdale. So here's what we are going to do. In the next couple of weeks, although our office in Cheetham Street will remain open for parliamentary business, wind-up business for 4 months, we're going to open a Workers' Party office here in Rochdale. There will be a state-of-the-art with an illuminated corridor lit up at night in Great Street or wherever it turns out to be. It'll be a landmark in the town. And forgive me, Jack, my dear friend Jack Can, Councillor, we're going to announce a Greater Rochdale. I know you think you're Oldham, Bolton, Bury, but Rochdale is the heart of the matter. So a Greater Rochdale Workers' Party is what we are announcing here today. And you're all welcome. We're ready to give you citizenship from the Greater Rochdale area. You're welcome to use our office without charge. Well, maybe a little charge. You're welcome to use it as your mail address. You're welcome to meet with us and with your own friends and party members there. It'll be a resource for the Workers' Party in Greater Rochdale. We're going to begin the drawing up of a panel of suitable candidates for local government elections and by-elections. We want people to volunteer. We want to interview them. We want to help educate them. We want to help prepare them for the day that it's their names on the ballot paper and not my own. And if we get a by-election here, and if we win it, that'll still be my last term. So we are still on the lookout for parliamentary candidates, not just for Rochdale, but for Haywood and Middleton, for Bury North and South, for Oldham East and West, and for all of the Greater Rochdale area. I don't know where it will end, this Greater Rochdale. I don't want to use the example of Netanyahu, but it could stretch quite far out of the centre of Rochdale, is what I am saying. But we want to produce a new generation of women, of young people who can carry this banner forward. I see in the crowd many of our candidates at the general election who did us proud. We're so proud to see them on television, so proud to see them on social media, their interaction with the public, their speeches from platforms and so on. This is going to be the centre of the fight back here in Rochdale. Of course, we will not forget our friends in Greater Manchester, but they can look after themselves. We will organise the periphery of the city of Manchester, which gets the wrong end of the stick from Andy Burnham and from the Mayor's office in Manchester. Here's what else is going on. Imtiaz touched on, and I want to reiterate, we can't accept what's happening in Gaza. I mean, we literally can't accept it. We can't sleep properly. We can't enjoy the things that we used to enjoy. We can't tear ourselves away from the images of the bleeding and the crying. We make no apology for that. Although journalists are always asking us to, like a journalist interviewing a politician in 1940 and accusing him of going on and on about this Holocaust. We cannot forget Gaza. And so we announce here this evening the beginning of a Palestine campaign, a Workers' Party Palestine campaign based here in Rochdale and stretching out across the northwest of England. We are here together to step up the boycott, to provide alternatives to the boycott. One of the most successful videos I did in the whole election campaign was 100 yards from here, when my brother Yasser bought me. I think the shopkeeper didn't take the money. What was the store?
Salam.
Haji's. Haji insisted. And I stood with a can of Yemenade. Ever heard of it? Yemen, you will hear of it. Yemenade and Salam Cola. And I just held the two cans up to the camera, said a few words. Millions of people saw the video. Millions saw it. And I hope the sales of Yemenade and Salam Cola go to the roof. We need to provide an alternative to this Starbucks and Costa and the rest. We need people where our people can go and have coffee. Nowadays you can't. We had a situation, Shabazz with your brother, Bax. We stopped in a motorway service station and Starbucks had bought the whole shebang. You could only buy Starbucks. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. We really needed a coffee, but we couldn't have one. We have to generate an alternative to those that are supporting the genocide, those that are supporting the agony that we cannot tear ourselves away from. So there's going to be a lot going on here in Rochdale. It's a bittersweet feeling for me driving into Rochdale this afternoon, as my wife will testify. I became emotional, realizing how much we achieved in such a short time, and therefore how much we lost by 1,500 votes on a 52% turnout. If it was 52, roughly 50% of the people voted. But too many people voted in Littleborough and not enough people voted in Deeplish, in Milkstone, in Central, in Kingsway. That's the truth of it. It's not a mistake we'll make again. We intend to take back control. And there's still nobody on those sloping roofs. So I'm ready to take your questions if Imtiaz will allow me at this mammoth meeting this evening. What's going on? We're going on. I'm going on. The Workers' Party is going on. That's what's going on.
If you've got a question, let me know. I'll bring the mic to you. Put your hand up. Okay. The nearest one here.
Thank you very much, George. My name's Dave Potter. I'm the agent for Roma Hassan in the campaign in Ashton-under-Lyne. I just want to say, and that probably applies to everyone who campaigns, that we work so hard. A couple of campaign managers here, and we work every day, every night. What we didn't see was in Labour, we didn't see the Conservatives, we didn't see the Lib Dems, we didn't see the Reform. They have the media do their work for them. We had 6 weeks to get around 70,000 people, 35,000 on Women Corner, and we couldn't do it. We put 5 years to do it again, and we're 100% behind the Workers' Party. We've got to change it, and that is hard work, and we work damn hard. And I'm proud of what we did. I'm proud of everyone that we did.
Well, Aroma was one of our most wonderful candidates. And if anyone deserved to be successful in that election, it was she. And I believe I said this to her on the eve of a poll, that she has a big future in the Workers' Party as a national figure, as a national leader. She started the campaign in Ashton-under-Lyne, virtually unknown anywhere else in the country, and she ended it a national figure of significance. And that is a tremendous achievement to Aroma, you, her agent, Dave, and the other campaign. It is undoubtedly the case that the Workers' Party profile will inevitably change. Many, if not most, of the people who played such a great role, including Hos the national election organiser, are not presently in the leadership of the Workers' Party, and that will change soon also. So the Workers' Party, by the end of this year, will look different. It's very much bigger for a start, and its structures will have to adjust to accommodate that. We'll have, or at least I'm going to push for, a Congress early next year or late this year, which will renovate the leadership and the profile of the party, which needs to look rather more like this audience than we currently look. We need to look like our voters. We need to look like our electors. And that is a project of mine that I will not let go.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Fawzia Khan. I met brother many years ago. I don't know if you remember me. I was an artist and I gave him some bookmarks a long time ago, but maybe at least 20 years ago. So anyway, I just wanted to say a couple of points before I ask my question, because I think the points are pertinent to this meeting, and it's information that I sort of gathered over the last 20, 30 years. So I remember when I was campaigning within the NUS, I had positions on the NUS, and I saw exactly what I saw exactly what Labour was. Labour is so deeply embedded with Labour Friends of Israel, it will never change. And I did a very short video on my Instagram about what I saw, you know, with my own eyes, how they behave. And that was 30 years ago. And I've been proven right again and again and again. When Tony Blair stood, I was asked, well, who do you think we should vote for? I said, don't vote Labour. And we were proved right about that. I also wanted to make a point about the hospitals. You mentioned that I didn't know that the maternity had gone in Rochdale. Well, we've already got a privatised hospital in Manchester, and I'll explain to you how that was done. And it was done through Labour policy. What happened was that Manchester Royal Infirmary had a lot of land around the hospital and they wanted to develop it. So they sold the land to developers, and then the Eye Hospital, St Mary's new building, and the Children's Hospital was built on that land. And then the developers leased it back to the trust at an exorbitant rate, and they nearly bankrupted the trust. So then the trust was handed over to Manchester University. And Manchester University is a business, it's a private business. So that hospital is now completely privatised because it's been run by Manchester University. And they've also taken over Trafford General, which was a very, very good hospital, and Wythenshawe. I mean, I've recently had experience in Manchester Royal. I've never set foot in that hospital ever again. It's on its knees in terms of decent treatment and so on. My question is that, you know, from what I've observed, and from what I've observed of how this party stood up and stood candidates, my own experience is when I campaigned for Labour with Jeremy Corbyn there, is that they've got a really intense machinery of campaigners, and they're very visual within the community. And one thing that I kept seeing, and people mentioned to me several times, was, well, we don't know that candidate, and we don't know that candidate. My own personal opinion is that we should get, from now until the next election, have groups, community groups working within the community, helping the community and making the party visible wherever we set up. So, for example, when we have, you know, like, for example, if there's a community centre that needs tidying up, or this or that or the other, you know, there's visible groups from the party to go and get those tasks done. How are we going to, because you know, you're based in Rochdale, but I'm going to be moving to Leeds. I've been based in Manchester a long time. How are we going to keep the momentum going in other areas? And would you accept other offices opening in other cities?
Well, thank you for that. First of all, the hospital situation that you described is PFI, and we are right back smack in the middle of PFI all over again. That's how they intend. They've openly said so. They intend to fund anything that is going to be funded through the private sector. Now, the hospital that you described is the one that one of our children was born in, and it is a private business. The university is a private business. The land is owned by a private business. The pharmaceuticals in the hospital are provided by private business, and it will only be a matter of time as Wes Streeting, the rancid Zionist health secretary, who got in by just 500 votes and is still strutting around like nothing ever happened, has made plain that the future of our health service under them will be privately funded. And if it's privately funded, it can only be a matter of time before you are forced to fork out for treatment that you receive, even though you've already forked out for it through the taxation system all of your working life. Now, our son, our youngest son, who's 10 this very day, I don't know if he's in the room, our son, Torrin, stand up, show them your sling. He's 10 years old in a sling. We had to go to the accident and emergency on something like a week past Sunday. This is his first week in a sling. And the beauty of that infirmary, that accident and emergency, those nurses, those doctors, is something that we should be intensely proud of. That we were the first country in the capitalist world to win a free health service, free at the point of need. If I had been in America, his including an overnight, his 2 days in that infirmary getting his elbow wired up and fixed would have cost tens of thousands of pounds, would have bankrupted almost anybody that had to go for that service. We need to fight harder to maintain our national health service. We need to fight harder against those that wish to privatize it. And we have been sleepwalking, we have been led down a path which ineluctably leads to full privatization, halfway to privatization, as we already are. And of course, you want to know how you can impact on the community, you need to get Hassan. You know that young boy that opened for me this evening? This young man is everywhere, in every community event. In fact, he puts on half the community events. He's exactly the kind of young man, sorry for calling you up on, exactly the kind of young man. Everybody needs a Hassan. Every branch of the Workers' Party needs a Hassan. Every community needs a Hassan. Who he literally picks up the litter. He literally fixes things for people that the council has refused to do, even though the people have paid already in ever-increasing council taxes for the services that they are not getting. And we need to be involved at every level. Councillor Manan will tell you there was a local community association here in Deanclish, which had been run by Labour grandees for decades. They didn't see us coming. We turned up at the AGM, we turned them out, and now our people are running the community association in Deanclish. That's the starting time Councillor Manan on my right. That's what we need to do. These are all unguarded fortresses. Labour's power is based on nothing, except no one challenging them. Well, we intend to challenge them everywhere that we can. In Leeds, in Manchester, in Greater Rochdale. That's a phrase that's going to stick. Greater Rochdale. Everybody be applying to join Greater Rochdale before we are finished. Any other questions?
So there's going to be more questions, but I'd like you to keep it to a question because I want to hear George. Okay? No great long comments. Assalamu alaikum everyone. First of all, I have to say, Mr. George Galloway, thank you very much. You provide us this opportunity today. And secondly, thank you very much you choose Rochdale for Workers' Party. It's very, very important and it's a great thing. I would like to clap on that. It's a very, very big thing. To bring the change in local politics and the national politics is very, very important, particularly in Greater Manchester. No, it's really no good, but anyway, I will ask you the question straight away now. But so many things I want to appreciate through my whole team anyway. My question is, what we can see next 6 months, how many by-elections, including MP, in Rochdale?
Well, 6 months is a bit of a tight time scale. The election court, the one I remember best, and I remember it for two reasons best, is what happened in Oldham West, where the Labour MP Phil Willis was disqualified and banned from Parliament for life for lying about his opponent, Liberal Democrat opponent, in the general election. I don't remember exactly which one, maybe in 2010. But Oldham West was the last place I properly studied as an election court decision. The verdict was devastating. Labour lost the subsequent by-election, and they've never actually been the same ever since. And neither has Phil Willis. I remember him well because he used to work for me. He's a former employee of mine. And there he was 1 minute, not just an MP, but a minister at the Home Office. And the next minute he was disqualified from Parliament and never allowed to stand again. I very much hope the same thing will happen here. But that all took the best part of a year. The by-elections, we demand a Kirkcaldy by-election right now. The Kirkcaldy councillor is the MP for Haywood and Middleton. How can she also be a councillor in Kirkcaldy? And if she doesn't move soon, we'll take the legal steps to force her to demit office as a councillor in Rochdale. And we intend to fight that by-election hard. As to when we'll get Dalit Ali out, I can't say. But I'm absolutely certain that we will. So 2 council by-elections in our constituency and eventually a parliamentary by-election. If Labour had any decency, they would step down now and fight a clean election next time against me. Yes, Billy?
It's going to be in March, he says.
In March? So she's going to remain a councillor and an MP for the best part of a year. Well, I don't think that's acceptable. And the people in the ward are going to have to start organising a petition to get thousands of signatures to tell her to resign as the Kirkcaldy councillor. And we'll organise that.
I've been telling her every day since she's been elected in there.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am, at the front.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Yeah.
A video has been circulating with 2 people taking boxes into this counting area, and at that point you was actually in the lead, is what I was led to believe. Is there anything you can tell us about that or not?
I can't accept to confirm that's one of the issues in the petition to the police. The police are investigating our complaints now. It wouldn't be right to publicly comment on them, but I can confirm that is one of the issues. We weren't actually leading. There was 122 each. 122 bundles for me, 122 bundles for Labour, and then, hey presto, in the middle of the night comes in the famous 2 black boxes.
Yeah.
Was there someone in the middle that I missed?
And there's one there.
Yeah, you take them then, you choose.
So I'm George.
Name's Lon.
Some of you may know me from the by-election in Rochdale. I campaigned recently for James Giles. I was an election agent and campaign manager. We were a whisker away for unseating Liam Byrne. And as you know, Jess Phillips in the neighbouring constituency, she barely survived. But the silver lining for us was in Birmingham that we unseated Khalid Mahmood. Those of you know, Khalid has been an ardent enemy of our community. But during the course of the campaign, started to kind of put out whether we get the toolkit, because I think it's essential for our campaigns to understand, for instance, how the count works, sampling, and also just when it comes to like canvassing, how to have an effective campaign. And the other thing being, when we are going to have candidates standing, that will we be able to join in the process? I know the sister at the back mentioned earlier about ensuring that we have stakeholders from the community, that our candidates are known. So it's something that I believe is quite imperative, because James, as you know, was an unknown figure, but by the second week, mashallah, the campaign that we did, he became a household name in the Hodge Hill. So just want to know whether we might be able to roll that out in the coming months.
Well, you've got the job. There's nobody better to do it than you, Faruqi. First of all, thank you for the great efforts you made in our by-election, which was victorious. And the two candidates that we stood in Birmingham, I should have said that we got 210,000 votes for Workers' Party candidates. And if you add those independents that we most closely were associated with, the figure is more than 250,000 votes for a party that was blacked out of the television, the debates, the opinion polls, never mentioned unless it was to attack us. 250,000 votes is an unprecedented number. But in Birmingham, our Workers' Party candidate, James Giles, came within 1,500 votes of defeating one of the biggest figures in the Labour Party, and our candidate, Jodie McIntyre, came within 800 votes of defeating an even bigger Labour figure, Jess Phillips. That's how close we came. And other independents came within 500 votes in Leanne Mohammed's case in Ilford, and so on. I mean, Labour lost 5 seats to what can now be called pro-Gaza independents, though they are much more than that. But they could easily have lost 5, 10, 15 more, including the one here in Rochdale. So their majority doesn't look, or rather it looks stronger than it is. But you're right, that's why I said our new headquarters here will be used to provide a toolkit to people who want to be candidates. People should think now, and don't be shy about it. Think now about whether they would like to be a council candidate. In 2 years' time, in the case of Rochdale, all the seats will be contested. Now, experience is not everything. Ability counts, but ability plus experience is a winning ticket. And we've got the brains, Dr. Dawood here, the strategists. We've got the brains that can plan campaigns and research issues. And we've also got the practical experience of winning elections. I've won 7 parliamentary elections. 3 of them as effectively an independent or small party candidate outside of the political system. It can be done, and there's never been a better time for it. The number of people who voted either Labour or Tory this time was 52%. That's of the people who voted. That's the lowest figure ever in history. Going right back to the foundation of the Labour Party, there's never been a smaller proportion of the people who voted for Labour or Tory. People are turning away from the established parties. They're looking for independence. They're looking for new parties. They're looking for a fresh approach. It's up to us to give it to them.
George, I just wanted to add something to that exact point, that the party is actually at the moment, in the next 2 weeks, organising leadership courses and how to become elected councillors and members of parliament. It's an actual course that the party is running, so it will start on the 28th, and from then on, hopefully, we're looking for candidates to come and take part in the programme, and we are looking to train you to be able to do the job. As an MP, as well as a councillor, there'll be a way for you to get involved in that programme. Just check the website, the party website. There will be a place for you to sign up to basically take part in that. So I'm going to pass the microphone off.
Hi, my name is Imran and I'm an agent for Shanaz Sadiq from Model Second Workland East. I hope you're okay. It is going.
Welcome.
It's absolutely fantastic to see you even more high spirits. You know, normally the people say that when you lose elections, especially a politician, you see the next elections. But this what you're doing is a motivation which we all need, and you will see the results of this in coming local elections. I just want to quickly mention your Workers' Party's candidate, Shanaz Sadiq, your Workers' Party brought Labour's 25,000 votes to 14,000 single-handedly. The winning margin there in order, the strongest hold of Labour is 10, now the winning number is 10,000, which is a huge achievement of Workers' Party and your party under your leadership. My suggestion would be to concentrate on local elections in 2026. And suggestion is, if when you make this office, all is standing here, Rochdale, if we can somehow channelize all the votes from Northwest to this office, the issues people face at local level, because this is one most important learning from this election. The people, they're only bothered about tiny, small issues. So any local issue in Oldham coming out and you are raising voice as party leader, I think that will make huge difference. So I would say if you can comment on that, if you can do that, that will be great.
Thank you very much. We definitely will do that. We will make the office here a headquarters for the whole of what I'm jokingly calling Greater Rochdale, and of course Oldham is very much a part of our purview. We intend to fight all of the local council seats in all of Rochdale and surrounding area, and we need candidates for that. So think if you could be one of those candidates. Yes, sir.
The youth needs a youth club. Are we going to have one, or is the youth going to stay on the streets forever?
Yeah, well, I think they are. It's a very good question. Youth services are non-existent, not just here, but across this region. And the devil finds work for idle hands. Of course, there are plenty of private facilities, but you need money for the private facilities. By the grace of God, I've got money, so my 17-year-old son, he's in everything. He's in the gym, he's in the swimming club, he's in the football club, but if I couldn't give him the money for these things, he wouldn't be able to be in any of them. And he'd be on the street along with so many other young boys and men. And it is one of the curses of our age that we have a government that spends £12,000 per minute, just on Trident, never mind on the rest of the weapons and on the rest of the wars, just on nuclear weapons. We spend £12,000 a minute. We could get a youth club open every 5 minutes with that kind of money. And a stitch in time saves 9, and any housewife, any man knows that. A repair now saves you much more later. Now we've got a youth section in the party. You like this in Rochdale, we're called the Pioneers, like the Rochdale Pioneers. The Workers' Party Pioneers has a big future ahead of us, and that's what we need. So if you've got kids, not very small kids, but kids from 10 upwards maybe, you should enroll them in the Workers' Party Pioneers. Young Hassan will look after them thereafter. Yes, sir.
Jahangir Mohammed, this is a question for everybody really to focus on, a strategic one. The biggest issue I think we have with any left movement, yourselves and even the independents, is getting the non-Muslim vote. If you do what Nigel Farage, the one-trick pony, does, which is bash migrants and Muslims, you'll get non-Muslim votes. Obviously, we can't do that. But as Farage and Reform take shape and we drift rightwards, more right-wing, towards something approaching France, this poses a real challenge for all of us on how we're going to check that drift and how you can compete with it, or not compete with it, but how we can counter it and reach those parties, given that the media peddles the same message and has been doing for 20 odd years. Bash the migrants, bash the Muslims, and even Starmer did it with bashing the Bangladeshis. So I think the Workers' Party what's your strategy to do?
Yeah, I'm sure, I hope that that question was picked up for the national and international audience that are watching this online right now. But just in case it wasn't, let me restate your question. The gentleman asked the powerful question of how we break out, as it were, of the minority ethnic communities and compete with the likes of Farage and the Reform Party and their populist right-wing populist appeal to the masses. And the gentleman said that we may be on a drift towards the situation in France. So let me start with France. My equivalent, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, won the parliamentary elections in France just last Sunday. He came first, and the Faragiste Le Pen came third. So these people can be defeated. The first task in defeating them is to make sure all the people we're defending come out and vote for us. Yeah, because if there are people in Littleborough that hate me, they hate me because they hate you. And they see me as you. They see me as your voice. So for God's sake, for a starter, make sure all of you vote for me. And we're some way short of that. The second task is, as Jean-Luc Mélenchon did, to advance a program and a critique of the existing parties that is in the interests of the mass of the working class people. And we're provided now with enormous opportunity in that. So in the case of France, the Mélenchon Popular Front, I should say in parenthesis, Mr. Corbyn rang me a week past Saturday and we had a long conversation on the telephone, and I told him then, and then I publicly did it the next night on the Mother of All talk shows. I call for a popular front, just like in France, with Mr. Corbyn in the lead of it. And I very much hope that that will happen over the next weeks, months, hopefully not years. But the program of Mélenchon was for a reduction in the retirement age back to 60. Liz Truss has just proposed that our retirement age should be 80. 80. Liz Truss, who's got a prime ministerial pension at the age of 46, having served only 49 days as the Prime Minister. She's got the pension, mother of all pensions. She called today for our pension age to be 80. The average age of death in this country is 80.1. So she's effectively called for the abolition of the old age pension. We'll get 1 month's pension before we die. That's the policy of the Tories. Our policy is to reduce the retirement age and a decent pension to fund it back to the 65 for men and 60 for women that it very recently used to be. Melonson's programme was for an increase in the national minimum wage to €1,600 per month. That's actually a very small minimum wage, but it represents a huge increase of 40% on France's national minimum wage. Our policy is for a 40% increase in the minimum wage in this country. And so on through the domestic issues that appeal to everybody, we must sharpen our message, enhance our campaigning on things like maternity hospitals that benefit everybody, on things like A&E that benefit everybody, jobs, houses that benefit everybody, higher wages, lower tax. Our policy was to take everybody out of tax until they earn £21,000 per year. That's a policy for everybody. Now, of course, we'll never win racists, at least not for a long time. Our task is to stop people migrating towards racism. And here's an important statistic. We're thinking about these things all the time. I want to assure you. One of the biggest surprises to people was in the 18 to 24 age group. There was a huge increase in the vote for Farage. People expected that older people would vote for Farage. Nostalgics, thinking that we can go back to what Britain was in the 1950s. Wasn't that great, by the way? I was there. You went out for your dinner, it was fish chips, tea, bread and butter. That was your dinner. Thanks to all of you, it's rather tastier nowadays. But the reality is that in the 18 to 24 age group, a disturbingly large number of people voted for Farage. We have to win these people. These are, and Starmer's going to cut the voting age from 18 to 16. I hope he does, by the way, because every school child in this town would have voted for me. I've got the video evidence to prove it. So that group, which will now soon be 16 to 24, is a critical age group for us, for obvious demographic reasons. And we have to reinvent methods of campaigning, a vocabulary, an iconography, colours, flags, music. We have to win these people back to us. We need a low key in every town and every city. We need to talk the language that the young people talk and appeal to their feelings and their reasons for beginning to be drawn towards Nigel Farage. But the last thing I'll say, I will never, ever, ever abandon the people in this audience. And I'll stand outside and die on the step if anybody comes for them. That you can count. That you can count. Last question from Brother Junaid, and I'm going to ask Mrs. Galloway to close the meeting. Brother Junaid.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Last half you may remember the elections in 2005. In 2005 elections, to rate, pretty rating I would say, what the Labour did was there is a notoriously known religious speaker from Pakistan, Maulana Fazlur Rahman. He was barred from UK. He wasn't allowed to get the visa. But especially, Tony Blair arranged his visa. This is on the record. To influence the Muslim votes. Now, in the last few weeks, Pakistani government announced any Pakistani, anywhere, if he applies for, if he or she applies for asylum, their Pakistani nationality will be cancelled. And then Keir Starmer said the Bangladeshi people will be sent back. Then people, Bangladeshi people especially, got phone calls from the Bangladesh government to support the Labour. Apart from, we have seen a lot of rigging in this own eyes, especially in Rochdale, and this has been a nationally rigged election. 3.1 million people, less people voted for Labour, but they have more than 400 seats. I would like to, George, just put a little light on this, please.
Yes, it's a very powerful point that you make, Brother Javed, my oldest friend here in Rochdale. I can't yet explain it, but more and more research is emerging, which is beginning to explain it. When I was in East London, when I won the Bethnal Green and Bow general election and retired Una King to California, the Bangladeshis told me that the work for benefits in their community was Labour. You got your Labour, and then you got your benefits. And there's evidence in several places across the country that Labour councillors and activists, such as there were saying to Bangladeshi origin people, you have to vote for Paul War or you'll lose your Labour. You'll lose your benefits. Now this is obviously an issue that will die over time because some of the smartest people in the whole country are of Bangladeshi origin. They're the most successful of all the immigrant groups to Britain. There's some splendid examples sat in the front there. These people are never going to fall for that kind of junk. But their grandparents can still fall for it. Their parents even can still fall for it. So over time, that kind of shenanigan will die. But the fact that Labour has already betrayed the Muslim community in Britain, not just on Gaza, but directly. Starmer singled out the Bangladeshis 3 times, and John Ashworth said exactly the same words on exactly the same day. So it was a line that they had decided to take to pick on the Bangladeshis, to appeal to Nigel Farage type voters. We have to drive home the point to the Bangladeshi origin people in our midst. These people are no friends of yours. Why would you vote for them? They've stabbed you in the back, in the front actually. Why would you vote for them? The fact that Pakistanis will no longer be able to apply for political asylum here, because according to the British government, the Pakistan government can be fully trusted to look after people's human rights back home in Pakistan. This is another stab in the front. Quite apart from Gaza, which is an overarching issue for all the Muslims, or ought to be. I personally believe, I may be wrong, no one's come up and said it to me, but I personally believe there are a lot of Muslim voters in Rochdale who were very sad that they had not voted on the 4th of July. Mufti Saab here in the Central Mosque made a speech about it. He raised the issue of Zain al-Abidin, and everyone's head went down, I'm told, in the khutbah. everyone looked at the ground because Mufti Saab was saying if you voted the wrong way or you did not vote, then you have done a very sad thing. And so it seems to me quite likely that there's definitely more than 1,500 of the 50% of Muslims who did not vote wish that they had, and wish that they had voted for us. I believe that. I'll always believe it. I don't know if I'll ever have evidence of it. But in my heart, I feel that I know it. But we pick ourselves up and we fight on. Now, we spoke about youth. Mrs. Galloway would like to say a word, if you will allow her, about the women's vote and the importance of women's organisation. Over to you.
Thank you, but thank you much, dear. First of all, because you made us and our family, our children, indeed, all of George's 6 children and 5 grandchildren, so very welcome here. But especially what thank you, Mr. Because on the 29th of February, you elected my husband. And by electing my husband, you sparked hope and inspiration, not just in Rochdale, throughout the country. Yeah. Throughout the country, because of our win here that you made possible, people all got the hope and the inspiration and the courage to stand up and stand themselves as councillors and as members of parliament. And so that resulted on the 4th of July in the Workers' Party winning over 200,000 votes. I really I'm begging you not to forget that. Because this was the key issue. Our main goal was to get at least 200,000 votes nationwide and at least one MP. What would that have mean? That would have meant that Workers' Party would have been elevated, super league in the parliament. We would get subsidies, good funds, we would get privileges, all the things that made us a proper party that they could no longer ignore as they had done during the general elections. And we were so close to it. So close to it. But do not forget, we had that mandate. More than 200,000 people voted for the Workers' Party. And as our husband said, if we include those independents that we were closely associated with, 100 million, imagine. That scares the hell out of this establishment. So don't forget that. And on this mandate, we will continue from here to Rochdale, Greater Rochdale. I like the sound of it because this area means a lot to us. Our daughter was born only 30 minutes away from here. So you won't see the back of us, we'll always be here. And from this office, thank you, from this office, we will not just have a youth service, youth group, the pioneers, we will have a women's group as well. Okay? Because I want to give big thanks to those women who stood up during the election. I want to thank you. To the Galloway, to the Kenya, to the Zambia, all of the foundation. I apologize if I missed anyone. Yes! All of this, thank you so much. We've got so many throughout the country. So we are going to focus on the women because it was the youth and the women who made it possible, especially possible on the 29th of February, because they felt that my husband was giving them that platform that they needed, that voice that was important. So don't forget that, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. Just in closing, I'm looking around and I'm noticing more and more of the audience. Because everywhere I've been, and I've been a lot of places, we left seeds behind that grew into magnificent trees. In East London, when I defeated Una King, we then elected 12 councillors Then we held a special referendum to create the position of a directly elected mayor, and that's why Lutfer Rahman is the mayor of Tower Hamlets today. In the Bradford West constituency, where we scored a spectacular by-election victory, now almost all the councillors are the independents, many of them young independents that were part of my campaign in the 2012 by-election. And one of them, a young boy of 23 years, Brother Islam, came within 500 votes of beating the Labour MP there. I cannot bear to say her name, I'm sorry. 500 votes, age 23. 21 years old. 500 votes short of winning. And almost all the councillors there now are either the people who were in our campaign in 2012 or their children.
He was 11.
Yeah, he was 11 when we won in Bradford West. Either our campaigners or their children are now capturing seats from Labour in Bradford. In Batley-on-Spen, I see my dear friend Taff here. The Independent, the pro-Gaza Independent, won in the Batley-Dewsbury general election constituency. He won. He trounced the Labour candidate, almost double the Labour candidate's votes. And at the core of his victorious campaign were the people who were at the core of my by-election campaign, the Starmer Out by-election campaign of just a couple of years ago. And the same will be true here in Rochdale. The only difference being, as my wife just said, we ain't going nowhere. We are here in Greater Rochdale to stay. Thank you very much for being here this evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, some of you may want to come and see George. Can I ask you if you can line up on this side? And we're going to have the table removed and you can come and shake hands with George if you want. And so come to this side and go from this side to this side. Remove the table.
I'll just stay on this side. यार बंद करो ना क्लोज